Welcome to We Learn, Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 19 of the chapter Economy of the Mauryan Period, and the subject is India, Earliest Times to the 8th Century AD. Topics to be covered are Introduction, Material and Social Basis of Production, Agriculture and Land Revenue, Trade and Town. Introduction. Study of agrarian economy is very crucial because the bulk of the population was involved in agriculture. We shall also familiarize you with the organization of land revenue collection. We shall also take into account the impact of agrarian economy on other spheres of economic activity. The impact of agrarian economy or the agricultural economy also had a huge influence or a huge impact over other social activities as well as the economic activities. This impact was more evident in the craft production and commercial activities. Growth in these areas led to improvement in technology, increased circulation of coined money, and growth of urban centers. So, the growth of agriculture, the growth of agrarian economy led to growth in technology, increased circulation of coined money, and the growth of urban centers. Material and social basis of production. The Greek writer Arrian stated that it was not possible to record with accuracy the number of cities because of their immense numbers. This can be taken to indicate that there may have been an increase in the number of towns in this period. Descriptions by Megasthenes of the well-organized administration of towns indicate large concentration of population in these centers. So, descriptions given by Megasthenes of the well-organized administration of towns that indicate that there was a big population that was living in these centers. For living in these towns, regulations were apparently stringent. So, there was strict rules and regulations. Excavations have, however, failed to produce any substantial evidence of city planning in this period, and the remains of Mauryan architecture are few. The remains of the architecture of the buildings of the Mauryan at that time, the buildings or the other evidences are very few, and there are also very less substantial evidences of city planning in this period. Agriculture and land revenue. General features of agrarian economy. In this earlier section, we have seen that settlement of permanent villages was recognized in the Earth Shastra as a method for the expansion of agrarian economy. These settlements ensured a sound and stable resource base for the state to extract taxes, and the land tax formed the bulk of it. So these kind of settlements that ensured a sound and stable resource base for the state to extract taxes, to keep its economic activities going, and also it was recognized that in Arthashastra there was a method for the expansion of the agrarian economy, and it was that wherever the settlement of permanent villages happened, there the economy expanded. So this process of settlement was called Janapadanivesa, but the extent of how this was done is not clearly known. The way they settled, the way they formed their own communities, the way they formed their own village communities, that how they actually settled over there, the settlement process, that is not clearly known. Growth of agriculture meant that the cultivator began to assume an increasingly important role. So, growth of agriculture, growth of agrarian economy, that meant that the cultivator or the person who is involved in the agricultural activities, that assumed an increasingly important role. Agriculture and land revenue. Land revenue organization. The classical writers state that some villages were exempted from taxation. There were probably rare exceptions, and in fact it has been suggested that this was so because these villages may have provided soldiers to the state. So they may have provided some soldiers to the state, that is why they were exempted from taxation. It is also suggested by scholars that in order to bring virgin soil under cultivation in some villages, remission of taxes was allowed for a period of time. So remission of taxes was allowed for a period of time. For a period of time, taxes needs to be relaxed for a particular point of time to bring the soil under cultivation and to check how the soil was, whether it produced harvest or not. The essential resources needed for the Mauryan state could only be got from land revenue. So the essential resources, the finances, that could have only be got from the land revenue or in the form of taxes. Trade and towns. The non-agrarian economy of the Magadhan Empire revolved around two interrelated developments. So it was non-agrarian economy of the Magadhan Empire, and two developments took place: expansion of trade and commerce and establishment of new towns and markets. There was establishment of the way business, trade and negotiations which used to happen. That particular activity was expanded, and there were establishment of new towns, cities and markets. There were new urban centers, towns and cities coming up, and the various commercial markets had also been set up where people could buy and sell goods and commodities. The development of the agrarian economy had given a solid economic base to the Mauryan Empire, particularly in the Ganges Valley. So, when the development of agricultural economy took place, it gave a solid economic base. It gave solid a base to the Mauryan Empire to expand itself, particularly in the Ganges Valley. And however, it was the expansion of commercial economy only that enabled it to extend its resource base to other parts of the country. So the way the commercial economy expanded, the way it expanded its activities or its sphere of activities, it led to the extension of the resource base to other parts of the country as well. Organization of trade. Trade did not suddenly develop during this period. It was part of the larger process of economic change which had begun much before the Mauryan times. The Jataka stories have frequent references to caravan traders carrying large quantities of goods to different parts of the country. So trade did not suddenly develop during this period. It was a part of the larger process of economic change which had begun much before the Mauryan times. So trade also took time to grow and to develop, and it was part of the larger process of the change which was happening. And the security provided by Mauryan rule enabled internal trade to blossom. So whatever safety, security that was provided by the Mauryan rule and security, that enabled internal trade, internal negotiations to blossom and to flourish. Major trade routes to West Asia and Central Asia passed through Northwest India. So major trade routes passed through the Northwest India. And also the Jatka stories have references to caravan traders carrying large quantities of goods to different parts of the country. Growth of urban economy. The process of urbanism, which had begun in the pre-Mauryan period, witnessed further growth in the Mauryan period. Two major sections of population inhabited the towns, namely artisans and merchants and the officials of the government. The urban economy, characterized by the activities of the manufacturers of goods and of merchants, as also by a system of exchange, began to spread from the Ganges Valley to other areas of western and central India, the Deccan and southern India. So also two major sections of population inhabited the towns, namely first the artisans who produced lots of goods and also handicrafts, and merchants who who manufactured lots of goods and services and sold in the market, and also the officials of the government. They formed a major section of population, and the process of urbanism began in the pre-Mauryan period, which also witnessed further growth in the Mauryan period. And the urban economy was characterized by the activities of the manufacturers of goods and of merchants, as also the system of exchange began to spread. Socio-economic changes in Mauryan India. The most distinguishing feature of the Mauryan economy was the emphasis on state control in agriculture, trade and industry. So there was emphasis that state should control agriculture, trade and industry. We have shown that it was necessary for the state to levy a variety of taxes. The requirements of resources for the Mauryan state were very high. The taxes realized from the region of Magad and adjoining areas were not enough to meet this demand. Therefore, attempts were made to control resources in other parts of the country as well. So, according to the requirements of the resources of the Mauryan state, the taxes had to be levied, and the taxes realized from the region of Magad and adjoining areas were not enough. Therefore, attempts were also made to control resources in other parts of the country. So that was all about urban centers and trade and towns of the Mauryan economy at that particular point of time. These are some of the questions. You have to do it yourself. Question number 1. List the fiscal measures which were expected to be adopted by the state during periods of emergency in about 5 lines. Question number 2. To what extent did the Mauryan state interfere in commodity production and trade? Answer in 5 lines. That's all. Thank you. Happy learning. We learning.